Excuse me, I have a 10 o'clock appointment upstairs.
One sentence. Polite. Quiet. A black man in a navy overcoat, worn leather portfolio pressed to his side. The security chief's lip curled. An appointment? Sure you do, pal. And I'm the Pope. The exit is that way.
Nobody upstairs is meeting you. We don't let your kind wander off the street.
Drag that dirty coat out before you stink up the marble, boy. Phones came up. A woman by the elevators started live streaming. Someone laughed out loud. A dozen employees in tailored suits pretended not to see. The guard's hand closed around his elbow, started pulling. But not one person in that lobby had any idea that in 11 minutes, a woman was going to come running down that marble staircase, screaming 3 words that would end careers before lunch. To understand what happened in that lobby, you need to understand the building it happened in. Meridian Equity Partners occupies floors 32 through 41 of a glass tower in Midtown Manhattan. Old money clientele, pension funds, family offices. The kind of firm that doesn't advertise and doesn't need to. Their reception area is the size of a small chapel. Veined white marble. A leather sofa nobody sits on. A potted olive tree that costs more than most people's cars. Meridian is a subsidiary. It answers to a parent company called Hollister Ellis Capital Holdings. Most of the people who work at Meridian have never met anyone from the parent firm. They've seen the name on paperwork, that's all. Remember that. It matters. The man running security in that lobby was Brad Wilson, 46 years old, 8 years at Meridian. Before that, 12 years as a state trooper in upstate New York, a career he ended after a use of force complaint he'd rather you didn't look up. Inside Meridian, people called him the Filter. Brad decided, by sight, who belonged in the lobby and who didn't. His philosophy was simple, and he said it out loud to new hires like it was a gift. If they walk in without confidence, they don't belong. Trust your gut. 2 employees had filed informal complaints about Brad in the last 3 years. Both were shuffled into a folder by his former supervisor, Thomas Moore, and quietly closed. Nobody ever told Brad the complaints had been filed. He thought he had a clean record. He thought he was good at his job. Those 2 beliefs, hold on to them. They're going to collapse on top of him later. The receptionist that morning was Megan Brooks, 29, 3 years at the desk. Megan treated her check-in tablet like a courtroom gavel. If your name wasn't in her system, you didn't exist. If Brad walked over and raised an eyebrow at someone, Megan's finger was already halfway to the security call button. On her schedule that morning, one appointment was flagged in red italics. 10 a.m. T.E. Private. See Hollister's office only. Megan had asked her manager what the initials meant. Her manager didn't know. Megan shrugged and moved on. She didn't think much of it. She would, in about 20 minutes, think about those initials for the rest of her career. Now let's cut across the city to a quiet brownstone in Harlem that same morning, 6:45 a.m. A man sits at a kitchen table, coffee in a plain white mug. A framed letter on the wall behind him, the Morehouse College acceptance letter from 1989. Next to it, a photograph of a woman holding a young boy's hand outside a middle school library. His mother. She passed away 4 years ago. He still talks to the photograph sometimes, quietly, when the house is empty. On his right hand, he slides on a gold signet ring, worn smooth from decades of wear. Inside the ring, Engraved in a small, stylized shield is a single letter. We don't see which letter yet. The camera in your mind's eye lingers there, on that small gold mark, because you're going to remember it in about 40 minutes, when it catches the light on the 41st floor. He picks up a leather portfolio. It's old, scuffed at the corners, a little water-stained, monogrammed in gold, faded now, but still legible. The letters T.E. The portfolio belonged to his father. His father used it to carry bills of lading at truck stops across 6 states for 31 years. The man at the table carries it now, on days he wants to remember where he started. He picks up his phone, dials one number. "Catherine, it's me. I'll be there by 10. The voice on the other end is careful.
Are you sure you don't want me to meet you in the lobby? I can...
No, I want to see it the way a stranger sees it. Don't tell anyone I'm coming. I mean it, Catherine. Nobody. A pause.
Okay, I trust you.
He hangs up, finishes his coffee, adjusts his overcoat, and steps out into the cold. The revolving doors at Meridian Equity Partners turn at 9:58 a.m. He pushes through them. Understated coat, quiet shoes, no entourage, no name on his lips. Brad Wilson's head lifts. Megan Brooks's eyes narrow at her screen. The temperature in the lobby drops 2 degrees, and not one person standing in that marble room understood, yet, that the man walking toward the reception desk wasn't asking for permission to be there. He was running a test. And every single person who failed it was already being watched. He walked across the marble floor with the unhurried pace of a man who has been in rooms more important than this one. Nobody in the lobby read the signal. Nobody was trained to. He stopped at Megan's desk, set the leather portfolio down gently on the counter, cleared his throat just once so she'd look up. She didn't. "Good morning," he said, soft voice, warm even. "I'm here for a 10 o'clock appointment." Megan's eyes flicked up, then back to her screen, then up again, slower. She took him in, the coat, the worn leather case, the calm. Her mouth tightened at the corners. "Name?" "T. Ellis. It may be listed as private." She typed 3 letters, squinted, typed again. "I don't see you." "Try Catherine Hollister's office. She's expecting me." Megan's fingers stopped moving. She let out a short, dry laugh, the kind of laugh that isn't the laugh, the kind that's a weapon dressed as a sound. "Sir, we don't do private bookings for walk-ins. If you're not in the system, you're not on the calendar." He nodded slowly, didn't argue, just waited. And that's when Brad drifted over. Brad had been watching from his post by the marble column for 40 seconds already. He'd seen the coat. He'd seen the portfolio. He'd made his decision before he even crossed the floor. His hands were folded in front of him in that way that looks professional and feels like a threat. "Is there a problem here?" Megan exhaled relief. "He says he has an appointment. There's nothing in the system." Brad turned to him, smiled. It was the worst kind of smile, the kind that has teeth in it. "Sir, I'm going to ask you to step away from the desk." The man didn't step away. He looked at Brad the way you look at a stop sign you've seen 1,000 times. "Could you call upstairs? Catherine Hollister's office. She's expecting me. One phone call will clear this up." "We don't make those calls based on requests from the lobby, sir." "It's one phone call." "And I said no, sir." You could feel it in the room. The word sir. Brad kept using it, but he was using it like a leash. Every time he said it, it meant the opposite of what the dictionary says. The man nodded once, filed it away, said nothing. And that quiet, that refusal to perform his own innocence, was what made Brad decide this was going to end badly. Because in Brad's worldview, an innocent man defends himself. An innocent man pulls out ID. An innocent man begs. This man wasn't begging. So in Brad's head, he must not be innocent. Across the lobby, by the elevator bank, a young man in an ill-fitting blue suit had frozen with a coffee cup halfway to his mouth. Daniel Morgan, 25 years old, 3 weeks into a junior accounting job, his first real position out of grad school. His mother was a public defender in Queens. She'd raised him on one sentence, repeated like scripture. If something feels like it shouldn't be normal, don't let it become normal. Daniel could feel something becoming normal right in front of him. He set the coffee down, didn't drink from it, didn't move. At the desk, Brad's hand came up and landed on the man's elbow. Light, controlled. A guide touch that is also a threat. Let's step over here, sir. We can talk about this over by the door. The man looked down at the hand, looked up at Brad, spoke very softly. Please take your hand off me. Brad didn't. From the side hallway, a younger officer appeared. Navy uniform, name tag reading K. Sanders. Kyle. 2 months on the job. He saw the hand on the elbow. He saw the man's face, and something in his stomach dropped. He knew. He knew this was wrong. But Brad was his supervisor, and Kyle was 2 months in, and he didn't move. Megan, flustered now, picked up the desk phone, but she didn't dial Catherine's office. She dialed the security substation on the mezzanine. Hey, can we get another officer down to the main lobby? Yeah, situation. She said the word like she was labeling a jar. The man heard it, heard his own body get categorized as a situation. His jaw tightened. For the first time, a flash of something passed across his face. Not anger, something older than anger. The tiredness of a man who has stood in different lobbies, in different years, in different suits, and had the same conversation. By the elevator, Daniel Morgan slid his phone out of his pocket, held it low, hesitated, slid it back in, then pulled it out again, angled it up, and pressed record. Brad was done with patience. He stepped closer, voice low, the kind of low men use when they want to make sure you know you can't win. Sir, I'm not going to ask you again. We've had issues with people coming in off the street trying to make trouble. The exit is right there. I am not off the street. You will be in about 10 seconds. A woman near the olive tree gasped. Another employee lifted her phone, thumb hovering over the live stream button on an app that was going to matter by tonight. Brad's grip closed fully around the man's arm. Kyle, on pure instinct, stepped forward and took the other side. Neither of them was pulling hard. Not yet. They were bracketing him, walking him, like hospital orderlies escorting someone out of a waiting room. The man did not resist. That's the part that will haunt you in Section 6 when Catherine watches the footage. He did not resist. He let himself be moved, one slow, humiliating step at a time, across the marble floor of a building owned, in all the ways that matter on paper, by him. His leather portfolio dragged against his leg. The monogram, T.E., caught the light for a single frame of Daniel Morgan's shaky vertical video. Remember that frame. It's going to be paused and zoomed and stared at in a 41st floor conference room tomorrow. All right, at this point, I'm already choked up, you guys. Because watch his face. He's not surprised. He's not even mad. He's just tired. And that hits different. That's the face of somebody who's done this dance before, in other lobbies, in other cities, for other reasons, his whole life. And honestly, I don't know if I could stay that calm. I don't know if you could. But he did. And that quiet is about to cost a lot of people their jobs. They reached the revolving door. Brad leaned in close, low enough that only the man could hear. "Don't come back." The man turned his head, just slightly, and for the first time, his eyes went hard. Not loud, not raised. Hard. The way steel is hard. "I won't need to." The door spun. He stepped through. And he was gone. Out on the sidewalk. Alone. The lobby exhaled, all at once, the way a crowd exhales when a body hits the ground in a boxing ring. Megan laughed, nervous, high, embarrassed. "Well." Brad adjusted his cuffs. A few employees glanced around, checking each other's faces for permission to pretend nothing had happened. Most of them took that permission. Daniel Morgan did not. He was still standing by the elevator. His phone was still recording. His thumb was shaking. Kyle Sanders walked back to his post slowly. He didn't look at Brad. He didn't look at anyone. He sat down at the security desk and he put both hands flat on the surface, palms down, like he was trying to hold the floor still. The clock on the wall above reception read 10:02 a.m. For 42 seconds, nothing happened. Elevator doors opened, closed. A printer clicked somewhere behind the desk. The olive tree didn't move. And then, from high above, from the grand marble staircase that spiraled up through the center of the atrium, came the sound of footsteps. Fast ones, heels on stone, getting louder, coming down. And a woman's voice, rising in pitch with every stare. "Where is he? Where is he? Where is he?" Megan looked up, confused. Brad looked up. A small vertical line appeared between his eyebrows. Kyle looked up, and his hands came off the desk. In the lobby of Meridian Equity Partners, every person standing in it turned at the same moment toward the bottom of the staircase to see who she was and who on earth she could possibly be running toward. The woman came down the staircase 2 steps at a time. Silver hair cut sharp to the jaw, mid-50s. A charcoal blazer that had cost more than most people in the lobby made in a month. Her breath was catching in her throat. Catherine Hollister, Vice President of Operations. The second most powerful person in the building, by title. She hit the lobby floor, and her eyes scanned the room in one sweeping arc. Past the olive tree, past the frozen employees. Her eyes landed on Brad. Where is he? Brad straightened his shoulders, tried to summon the authority he'd been using 2 minutes ago. "Ma'am, we just handled a—" "Handled?" Her voice cracked across the marble like a whip. "Handled what, Brad?" Megan jumped in, trying to land on the right side of whatever this was. "Some man. No appointment. He was asking for you, but there was nothing in the system." Catherine's head snapped toward her. "He had an appointment. With me." Megan's mouth opened. Closed. Catherine was already moving toward the revolving door, muttering under her breath like she was praying.
Please tell me he's still on the sidewalk. Please tell me.
She pushed through the door. The entire lobby watched through the glass as she caught up to him half a block down. They saw her reach for his shoulder. They saw him turn. They saw her speak, hand over her mouth, shaking her head. They saw him nod, once. And then they saw the two of them walking back together. Her hand didn't leave his arm, not in the way Brad's hand had gripped him. A different hand, a familiar one. Brad's face went gray. The revolving door turned. They came through it together. Daniel Morgan, still recording, whispered, "Oh my God," under his breath. Kyle Sanders took a half step back from Brad. Megan had gone so still it looked like she'd forgotten how to breathe. Catherine stopped in the center of the marble floor. She turned. She pointed at the black man beside her, the man who had been dragged out of this building 90 seconds ago like garbage. And she said the 3 words. She did not shout them. She delivered them, one word at a time, like a judge reading a sentence. "That's the owner." The lobby went silent. Not metaphor silent. Silent. A phone rang behind the reception desk. Nobody picked it up. An elevator dinged, opened, closed again, with no one on it. Megan's mouth opened, and no sound came out. Brad's hand drifted unconsciously to his own chest, the way a man checks for his heartbeat when he's not sure it's still going. Hollister Ellis Capital Holdings. Catherine's eyes hadn't left Brad. The firm that owns this firm. The firm that owns this building. The firm that owns the marble you just dragged him across. She turned to him, her voice cracked for a different reason now. "Mr. Ellis, I am so sorry." "Catherine, it's okay." "No, it is not." Brad tried. God help him, he tried. Mr. Ellis, sir, I didn't. There was no way." Mr. Ellis raised one hand. Just one. "Mr. Wilson, you've already told me everything I needed to know. You did it in the first 10 seconds. Brad's mouth closed. Catherine turned to Megan, voice steel now. "Call HR right now. Linda Carver. Tell her we have a level 1 incident in the main lobby involving the majority owner of the parent company. Tell her I want every minute of CCTV locked from 9:45 this morning forward in evidence before I hang up the phone." Megan picked up the receiver. Her hands did not work right. She dropped it, picked it up again. Catherine turned to Kyle. "You, stand down. You'll give a statement later. You are not in trouble. Yet." Kyle nodded, couldn't look up. Mr. Ellis looked slowly around the room, at the gaping faces, at the phones still pointed at him, at Brad, who was no longer standing as tall as he had been 2 minutes ago. "I'd like to go upstairs. I was supposed to have a meeting at 10. I'd like to have it now." He paused. "And I'd like Mr. Wilson, Miss Brooks, and Mr. Sanders in a room with me by the end of the week." Catherine nodded once. "Done." The executive elevator opened behind them. He stepped in. She followed. The doors closed on a lobby full of frozen faces. Brad stood exactly where he was. Kyle stared at the floor. Megan was still holding the phone. And somewhere on the 41st floor, Linda Carver was picking up a call that was about to detonate the next 6 months of her career. The executive elevator opened on the 41st floor into a different world. Thick carpet, quiet lighting, floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over Manhattan like the city was something you could hold in your hand. Catherine led him down a long hallway to a conference room with a single long table, walnut, oiled to a soft shine, and 8 chairs. She closed the door behind them. She locked it, which she had never locked before in 11 years of working on this floor. She poured him a glass of water. Her hands still weren't steady. He took the glass, didn't drink from it, set it down. Then he sat, slowly, at the head of the table, the chair he was supposed to have been in 40 minutes ago. And he looked out the window. The morning light caught the gold signet ring on his right hand, the one he'd slid on at his kitchen table before dawn. The engraving was visible now, a small, stylized letter E inside a shield. His mother had given him that ring the weekend he graduated from Wharton. She'd bought it with money saved in a coffee can under her bed for 6 years. He had worn it every single day since. Let me tell you who this man actually is. His name is Terrence Ellis. He is 54 years old. He grew up in a 2-bedroom row house in West Baltimore, on a block where the streetlights didn't always work and the sirens didn't always stop. His mother, Ruth Ellis, was a middle school librarian who kept a card catalog in her head for every kid on the block, who needed extra help, who was reading below grade, who was reading above it, and bored. His father, Henry Ellis, drove a long-haul truck from Baltimore to Birmingham and back, 3 runs a week, for 31 years. Henry carried his paperwork in a leather portfolio monogrammed in gold. The same portfolio that, this morning, had dragged against Terrence's leg across the marble floor of a building Terrence owns. Terrence went to Morehouse on an academic scholarship in 1989. Wharton, MBA, on a fellowship whose acceptance letter is framed in his kitchen next to a photograph of his mother. He built his first fund at 29, a fund that managed pension money for teachers' unions across the South. Teachers like his mother. That was not a coincidence. By 42, he had quietly acquired a controlling stake in a mid-market investment firm called Hollister Equity. The firm had nearly collapsed in 2009. The founder, a man named Arthur Hollister, Catherine's father, was 3 weeks from bankruptcy when Terrence walked into his office with a term sheet and one condition. Nobody gets fired. Nobody. Not the receptionists, not the mailroom staff, not the junior analysts whose names Arthur didn't even know. Keep them all, Terrence said. Teach them. Then we'll talk about performance in 2 years. Arthur signed. 6 months later, he renamed the firm Hollister Ellis Capital Holdings, a gesture Terrence had specifically told him not to make, which is why Arthur did it anyway. Arthur Hollister died in 2016. Catherine had been the one holding his hand at the end. The last thing Arthur had told her, voice barely above a whisper, was, "Stay close to Terrence. He's the real one." Today, 15 years later, Hollister Ellis owns a majority stake in Meridian Equity Partners, the subsidiary whose lobby had just tried to throw its own owner out into the street. His name is not on the building directory downstairs. It is on the LLC that owns the building. Terrence turned from the window. "Catherine, before you say anything else, I need you to know something." She sat down across from him. "Okay." "I did this on purpose." Her eyebrows pulled together. "Did what?" "The walk-in. No announcement, no security escort. I do it once a year. One of our firms picked in advance, without telling anyone. I walk in the front door like a stranger. Because the only way to know what a company's culture actually is to see how it treats someone who can't do anything for it." He paused. "This year I picked Meridian. I called you this morning because I wanted someone inside who knew I was coming. But I told you not to tell anyone, including whoever was in the lobby. Catherine closed her eyes. When she opened them, there was something wet in the corners.
Terrence, I have been telling the COO for 3 years that there was something wrong with that lobby. 3 years. And nobody listened.
I know.
I am so sorry you had to be the one who...
Catherine, stop. He leaned forward, folded his hands on the walnut. This is not about an apology. This is not about being right. This is about a man named Brad Wilson who decided what I was before I said my name. A receptionist named Megan Brooks who agreed with him without looking up from her screen. A rookie security officer named Kyle Sanders who knew it was wrong and did it anyway. And an entire lobby full of employees in $1,500 suits who watched it happen and said nothing. That's the problem. Not one bad guard. The system that let him feel comfortable doing it on a Tuesday morning at 10. Catherine nodded. She did not argue. Terrence set his father's portfolio on the table. The monogram faced her. T.E. She looked at it for a long moment.
That was your father's, wasn't it?
He used it for 31 years. Every bill of lading. Every truck stop from Baltimore to Birmingham. I thought I'd bring it today. He smiled, small and tired. Felt right. Catherine wiped her eyes with the back of one wrist. There was a knock at the door. "That'll be Linda," Catherine said. "Let her in." Linda Carver, HR Director, 11 years at Meridian, stepped into the room carrying a blue folder. Her face was pale. She had been in the elevator on her way down to the lobby when Megan's call had hit her desk. She had already requested the CCTV lock. She had already been notified legal. She was a competent woman who had done this job for a long time, and she knew, the moment she saw Terrence at the head of the table, that today was not going to be a normal day. Terrence gestured to the chair beside Catherine. "Linda, sit down. We're going to do this properly. Not fast, not quiet, not buried. Properly. I want the CCTV, all of it. I want Megan's call log. I want Brad Wilson's complete personnel file, not the version HR filters for senior leadership. I want every prior complaint, formal or whispered, dating back to his first day. And I want it on this table by end of business tomorrow." Linda swallowed, opened the folder, started to nod.
"Yes, Mr. Ellis."
No retaliation. No NDA rush. No PR first anything. If policy protects Brad Wilson, we honor it. If it doesn't, we apply it. Either way, it gets done in the light. Linda wrote that down, word for word, because she knew that tomorrow, a board was going to read it. Linda Carver was at her desk by 5:30 the next morning, 3 monitors glowing in a dark office. CCTV from 4 lobby angles queued up on 3 of them. Daniel Morgan's phone footage, emailed voluntarily at 11:14 p.m. the night before, with a short note that just said, "I hope this helps, ma'am," queued up on the 4th. A cold coffee, a notebook, a pen. She had done 40 investigations in 11 years at Meridian. Everything about this one was different. Her hand kept shaking slightly when she reached for the mouse. At 7 o'clock, Terrence walked in. Catherine followed him. And behind Catherine, unannounced, came a third person Linda had not expected to see. Eleanor Whitfield, 71 years old, board chair of Hollister Ellis Capital Holdings. A retired federal judge who had spent 18 years on the bench before private life. She walked with a slight limp from a car accident in 2011, and she carried a leather satchel that was older than most of the people in the building. She nodded at Linda once set the satchel down, and sat. Terrence closed the door. Linda, Eleanor is here to make sure this is clean. Not fast, clean. If anybody on our side cuts a corner, she calls it. If anybody tries to protect the firm at the cost of the truth, she calls it, especially if that person is me. Eleanor folded her hands. I have been told I am difficult to charm. Mr. Wilson is about to discover that this is accurate. They started with the footage. 4 angles, audio isolated and time-stamped. Every sentence Brad had said was now a line of text on a separate document, paired with a timestamp accurate to the second. The sentence, "Sir, we don't hand out change here." 9:58:22 a.m. The elbow grip, 9:59:41. Megan's use of the word situation, 10:00:03. The moment Brad and Kyle began physically moving Terrence across the marble, 10:01:15. The revolving door, 10:02:02. They watched it in silence the first time. Then Eleanor asked Linda to play it again. Then a third time. By the 4th viewing, Catherine had her hand pressed over her mouth and couldn't lower it. Terrence did not watch himself on the screen. He watched Brad. He watched Megan. He watched the employees in the background, the ones holding phones, the ones looking away, the ones who kept walking. Linda, he said quietly, don't apologize to me. Start with Daniel Morgan. He's 3 weeks in. He was the only person in that room who did the right thing. Linda wrote it down. They called Daniel up at 9. He sat down in the chair that was too big for him, twisted his hands in his lap, and told Linda the truth. He had almost not hit record. He had been scared of being, in his words, that guy on day 19. He said his mother had always told him, if something feels like it shouldn't be normal, don't let it become normal. Terrence was listening from the adjacent room on speaker. When Daniel said the line about his mother, Terrence closed his eyes, tilted his head back, and did not open them for a full 10 seconds. Brad Wilson's interview was at 11. He came in with his union representative. He had prepared what he believed was a smart opening. He sat down, folded his hands on the table, and delivered it. I was enforcing standard lobby protocol. We've had intruders before. There was no way for me to verify the individual's identity. I acted according to the training that this company has given me for 8 years. Eleanor did not look up from the folder in front of her. Mr. Wilson, let me read you something. She opened the folder. December of last year, you filed a lobby access report flagging a black attorney from our own outside counsel's office as, quote, suspicious, possible wrong building. The attorney had been to this building 12 times in the previous year. She turned a page. February. You asked a black software vendor to wait outside the lobby, outside, on the sidewalk, in 18-degree weather, for 42 minutes, while you verified credentials he had already emailed twice. He had a signed contract with this firm worth $80,000. He did not renew. Another page. April. A black candidate for a senior vice president role left his own interview after 20 minutes, called the hiring partner from his car, and declined the offer. His exact words in that phone call were, and I quote from the hiring partner's notes, "The tone of your reception desk told me everything I needed to know about your culture." Eleanor finally looked up. Mr. Wilson, would you like to tell me about those 3 incidents? Or shall I tell you? Brad's union rep opened his mouth, closed it, looked at his client, said nothing. Brad tried one more angle, the only one he had left. Those were all unrelated. Every case had a reason. Every case had your reason, Mr. Wilson. I'm asking if you see the pattern. Long silence. And then, and this was the most honest thing Brad Wilson was going to say all day, he muttered, to the table, not to Eleanor. I don't think I'm a racist. I think I'm good at my job.
Eleanor nodded slowly. Those two beliefs, Mr. Wilson, are the problem. Because nobody is good at a job that requires them to prejudge a stranger's legitimacy by sight. That is not a skill. That is a shortcut. And at this company, shortcuts just cost us an owner. Brad's head came up. Catherine, sitting against the wall, wiped her eyes and did not look away. While Brad was being walked back to a different conference room to wait, Linda laid out on the table the materials her overnight team had pulled. 6 prior informal complaints against Brad Wilson, all dated between 2021 and last month, all closed by his former supervisor, a now retired man named Thomas Moore, all involving visitors of color. None had ever been entered into Brad's formal personnel file. A demographic audit from the firm's own diversity consultant, dated November 2023, 14 months before the incident in the lobby. The audit flagged that Meridian's lobby incidents disproportionately involved Black, Latino, and South Asian visitors compared to the building's visitor mix. The report had been delivered to Thomas Moore's desk. Thomas Moore had marked it received and filed it. It had never reached Catherine. It had never reached the board. It had never reached Brad's file as coaching material. Megan Brooks's call log. 3 years of escalation records. 11 prior incidents in which Megan had called security on a black or brown visitor whose appointment she could not immediately locate. In 3 of those 11 cases, the visitor had actually been on the calendar. Megan had misspelled their names. Those corrections had never been made to her training record. An email from Catherine herself, 14 months ago. Subject line, concerns lobby escalation patterns. Wilson. Reply from Thomas Moore. Noted. Will monitor. No further action. No follow-up. The thread ended there. Terrence read through all of it, alone, that night, in Catherine's office. He did not react. He flipped pages. He made small pencil marks in the margins. Around midnight, Catherine came in with 2 cups of tea and sat down across from him. The data was always here, Catherine, he said quietly. We just didn't look at it until it was me in the lobby. She exhaled, shaken. What do we do? We fix it, publicly, painfully. And we make sure the next Terrence Ellis doesn't need to be the owner to be treated like a person. At 8 the next morning, Megan Brooks's interview was scheduled. Megan walked in with her eyes already red. She had not slept. She sat down. Before Linda could begin, she said, I don't want a union rep. I just want to answer your questions. Linda nodded. Megan, your name is on the call log. You escalated. You used the word situation. You laughed. We have the audio. When Mr. Ellis said his appointment was listed as private. You made a choice. Megan started crying. I was doing what Brad told me to do. Megan, I am not here to make you feel good. I am here to find out what you did. Those are different questions. Megan stopped trying to defend herself. She just nodded. She said, very quietly, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't help him, but I'm sorry. Kyle Sanders came in last. Kyle did not bring a union rep either. He sat down.
He did not wait for Linda to ask a question.
I knew it was wrong. I touched his arm anyway. Brad's my supervisor. I was 2 months in. I'm not going to pretend. I failed the test. Whatever you're going to do, do it. But please tell Mr. Ellis that I knew, in the moment, and I did it anyway. I want him to hear that from me. I don't want him to hear it filtered through HR. Eleanor leaned forward across the table. Mr. Sanders, thank you for saying that out loud. That is the first honest sentence I have heard in 2 days. It does not erase what you did, but it tells me what to do next. Kyle nodded. Didn't speak, didn't cry, just nodded. By Thursday evening, Terrence handed Catherine a single page of handwritten notes on lined paper. His handwriting was small and neat. 6 line items. Item 1. Termination with cause. Brad Wilson. Item 2. Final written warning. Megan Brooks. 90 days of mandatory retraining. Completion and documented behavioral change required. Failure to complete equals separation. Item 3. Probation with structured mentorship. Kyle Sanders. 6 months. New external head of security to oversee. Voluntary conflict resolution coursework at firm expense. Item 4. Independent, outside firm review of every incident closed under Thomas Moore's supervision, dating back 5 years. Every prior visitor of color who was escalated inappropriately. Contacted. Apologized to. Made whole where possible. Item 5. New lobby protocol, effective immediately. No visitor questioned or physically guided without a 2-person verification call to the host's office first. No exceptions. No supervisor override. Item 6. External DEI audit of the entire Meridian subsidiary. Findings published internally. Summary published to all employees within 90 days. No redactions. Catherine read the list twice. She looked up. Terrence, the board will approve 5 of these. Item 6, the published summary, no redactions. They will fight. Terrence capped his pencil. Then they'll fight. And they'll lose. Because I'm going to sit in that room on Friday, and I am going to ask each of them, one by one, whether they think the people who work for us, all of them, have earned the right to know what kind of building they come to every morning. And I would like you to be in that room when I ask it. Catherine nodded. She already knew what her answer was going to be. Friday morning, 41st floor, boardroom. 8 board members around a walnut table. Catherine at one end, Eleanor Whitfield presiding. Linda Carver seated along the wall with 3 folders, each one thicker than the last. Coffee in porcelain cups. No pastries. Nobody was hungry. Terrence Ellis walked in at 9 a.m. sharp. He set his father's leather portfolio on the table in front of his chair. He did not open it. He did not sit. Before we begin, I want this room to make this decision as if I were not in it. Several board members glanced at each other. Because next year, somebody else is going to be standing in that lobby, and I won't be the one they call. I want your votes to be about the building, not about me. He looked at Eleanor. Eleanor nodded once. Terrence picked up his portfolio and walked out of the room. The door closed behind him. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Linda opened the first folder, and the meeting began. It took 48 minutes. Linda walked the board through the evidence chronologically. Timestamps, audio, the footage, the 6 prior complaints, the 2023 demographic audit,
the 11-incident call log, Catherine's own flagged email, the Thomas More paper trail. Eleanor followed each exhibit with the legal and procedural framework. What policy required, what precedent suggested, what exposure the firm carried if the board moved too slowly or too cautiously. 2 board members pushed back on the speed of termination. One asked, carefully, about the optics of the severance package. A third asked whether Item 6, the published DEI summary, no redactions, could be softened to internal distribution only. Eleanor answered every question in the same calm, judicial tone. Not emotional, not political, procedural. By minute 30, the questions had stopped. Catherine spoke last. She did not use notes. She told the board that she had raised this concern 3 years ago and been ignored. She told them that the man who had sat at the head of their table this morning was the only reason the parent company still existed in 2009. She told them that if the board softened a single item, she would be handing in her resignation before lunch, and she would be doing it publicly. The vote was 8-0. All 6 items approved. No amendments. Linda walked out of the room and called Terrence. He was in Catherine's office, standing by the window, watching traffic on Park Avenue.
Mr. Ellis, all 6, unanimous.
He closed his eyes for a moment. Thank you, Linda.
Sir, Mr. Wilson is in conference room B. I'm going down now.
Good. Linda, one thing.
Yes?
He's going to ask to speak to me. Tell him no. Tell him exactly this. There's nothing he needs to say to me. There's a lot he needs to say to himself. Linda wrote it down. Brad Wilson was terminated at 11:14 a.m. Linda delivered the decision. Calm, clear, no theater. A different security officer, not Kyle, escorted Brad to clean out his locker. Brad asked, once, whether he could speak to Mr. Ellis. Linda delivered the line Terrence had given her, word for word. Brad didn't respond. He just nodded slowly and looked at the floor. They walked him through the main lobby, the same lobby, past the same marble, past the same olive tree, past Megan Brooks, who was at her desk on her first day of retraining and who did not look up, past Kyle Sanders, who was standing at his post and who did look up and who held Brad's eyes for a long second as he walked by. Nobody laughed. Nobody whispered. A receptionist in training quietly logged the exit in a new 2-person verification system that had been live for exactly 3 hours. Megan's outcome was delivered an hour later. Final written warning. 90 days of retraining, mandatory, documented. A pathway, not a guarantee. Megan said, through tears, "I want to try." Linda said, "Then try like somebody's future depends on it. Because somebody's does." Kyle's outcome came last. 6 months probation. Mentorship with the new external head of security, a position the board was already in the process of filling. Firm-paid conflict resolution coursework. Kyle said, "I want to learn this job the right way, or I want to leave it. You decide which." Linda said, "You just decided, Mr. Sanders." That was the right answer. Thomas More, the retired supervisor who had buried 6 complaints across 4 years, was contacted by outside counsel that afternoon. His pension was intact. His retirement was not at risk. But every decision he had signed off on in his last 5 years was entered into an independent review process that would take months. 11 prior lobby incidents were reopened. 4 former visitors received a formal written apology signed by Catherine Hollister on Hollister Ellis letterhead. 2 quiet settlements were paid. None of them were announced. None of them were buried either. And on day 9, Catherine sent an all-staff email to every employee of Meridian Equity Partners. Subject line: what happened last week and what we are doing about it. She named no individuals. She described the incident clinically. She listed all 6 reforms. And she closed with one line that half the company printed out and taped above their desks. A senior member of our ownership group was treated as a suspect in our own lobby because of the color of his skin. That is a failure of our culture, not a misunderstanding of our policy. We are not going to move past this. We are going to move through it. 6 months later, the internal culture survey at Meridian Equity Partners came back in April. Visitor complaints were down 71%. Employee trust in the security protocol, a question that had never been asked before that spring, came in at a number the board had not expected to see on the first try. The published 90-day DEI summary sat in a plexiglass frame on the bulletin board of every floor. Not hidden, not redacted, readable from the elevator bank. Kyle Sanders was promoted that same month to shift lead. Terrence had added one condition to the promotion personally, in pencil, in the margin of the HR memo. Every shift lead at Meridian, going forward, was required to spend 1 day a quarter shadowing the firm's community outreach program in the Bronx. Kyle did his first shadow the week after his promotion. He came back quieter than he'd left. He didn't talk about it much, but he started showing up 15 minutes early to every shift after that. Daniel Morgan, the accountant who had pressed the record, was named in a company-wide recognition memo, with his written permission, as the employee whose small act of courage had made the investigation possible. His mother, the public defender in Queens, framed the memo and hung it in her office next to her bar certificate. Daniel told a coworker in the elevator one morning, "I almost didn't do it. I almost let it go. I'm never letting anything go again." Terrence was at his kitchen table in Harlem that Saturday morning, coffee in the same white mug, sunlight on the Morehouse letter behind him, his mother's photograph beside it, his father's portfolio resting on the chair next to his own. His phone buzzed on the table. A text from Catherine. The new receptionist started today. Her first visitor was a retired school teacher from the Baltimore Pension Fund. She called upstairs to verify before anyone even asked her to. Terrence read it twice. Then he smiled. Small, tired, real. He typed back one word. Good. He set the phone down and looked at the photograph on the wall. Terrence Ellis did not walk into that lobby to catch someone. He walked in to see. And what he saw, what he corrected, wasn't one bad guard or one flustered receptionist. It was a culture that let people fall through the cracks of politeness. The fix wasn't punishment. The fix was attention, paid on purpose, paid in public, paid with a cost. A lobby is a small place, but it's the first room every visitor sees. What happens there tells every person, employee, client, stranger off the street, what kind of building they are in. Terrence Ellis didn't just change a policy. He changed what the first 10 seconds in that lobby mean. And that is not a small thing. Have you ever been in a room where something quietly wrong was happening, and you had a choice to record it, to speak up, or to walk away? What did you do? And if you could go back, would you do it differently? Drop your story below. I read every single one. If this video made you feel something, hit that like button, share it with somebody who needs to see it, and subscribe. Because next week, I've got another story about a moment that changed everything. I'll see you there.
Bruh, like, the first 10 seconds of meeting someone tells them everything about you from. So check yourself. Are you seeing humans, or are you seeing assumptions? Treat every stranger like they matter, because they do, always.